then it's gonna be quick. All right, all your men that been to jail before, suck my dick, and all them other cats you run with, get done with.
Wrong one.
Dog with some bum shit. And when the gun click, 911 shit, all over some dumb shit.
Okay, Harry, it's a family show.
You know, I put the.
I know.
I mixed up the dirty with the clean. I got both.
Okay, Paul gonna call us any minute now. What is going on?
You know what? Paul has played worse on the radio.
Oh, really? Okay, all right. I don't want no FCC problems, because people,
Now we'll blame it on Paul.
We in a point and shoot society right now.
Yeah, don't point and shoot at me.
LoveBabz,
LoveTalk. LoveBabz, LoveTalk.
Are we live? Are we in Minirex? What are we doing?
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, good morning. I'm Babz Rawls-Ivy. Welcome to LoveBabz, LoveTalk. That is Harry Droz. We are on time, or well, if it's somewhere around 9 o'clock.
Wow, that light's like the sun.
It's time for LoveBabz, LoveTalk. So we are here. So today is my Black Father Speak show. Because Harry, I talked about this. Everywhere we go, Black mothers are talked about, showcased. Rightly so. I'm a Black mother. I feel it. And in lieu of all these shootings over the last 400 years, Black mothers microphones and cameras have been pointed in their face, Harry. And people forget that Black fathers are suffering too. That Black and brown fathers are acutely aware of this pain. But I don't see large numbers of them being spoken to. Periodically you'll see one or two somewhere in between the Black mothers. And listen, this is not a knock on Black mothers. Black mothers deserve all the conversation that they can have a mic for. But there is a dynamic at work here that I've noticed, that somehow or other this narrative of Black men not being front and centered in their families' lives still seems to be prevalent. Even after all the studies, even after the Pew study said Black fathers are more present and attentive and caring than any other fathers on the planet. But yet and still, Harry, the narrative of absentee fathers is painted Black man. So I wanted to do something about that today and have a conversation with Black men and just hear them talk about their feelings about what is happening, and hear them talk about their struggles, and hear them talk about when they have to have these conversations with their sons and daughters about how to conduct themselves in these streets, and to hear the weariness of Black and brown men talk about, Harry, how they themselves don't sleep at night when their children are out there. You don't hear that often. You hear mothers say that all the time. I'm one of them. My children are grown, Harry, and when they go out into the street, I'm always concerned. And periodically, I'm texting them, hey, how's it going? I'm just checking in. Where you at? What you doing? Because anything could go awry. We've seen that. So today is the day that I get to have a conversation. And who better to have a conversation with one of my dearest friends, Kevin Walton, who has allowed me to care and take care of his children throughout the years. They've gone away on vacation and I have kept their children with my children at my house. So that's a level of trust that's not easily afforded. And I didn't take it for granted. I enjoy his children. I love his children. His children are like my children, and my children are like his children. My children call him Uncle Kevin. His children call me Auntie Babz. I ain't blood related to nobody. But that's how they were raised. That's how we raised these children. So I just want him and whoever he brings with him. And Dr. Brown is going to jump on too at 9:30, because Dr. Brown is a father and a grandfather, So it'd be nice to hear what Black grandfathers have to say, Harry, you know, and where they fit in this narrative. So
Yeah.
9:30.
I mean, my wife has worked with families now close to 30 years in New Haven and in Waterbury. Um, and more and more, she's actually seeing more and more single fathers actually taking care of their homes, doing all of um, the work that women have been doing all these years. So it is growing too, that a lot of stay-at-home fathers too.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that misnomer that we don't know how to take care of our kids has to stop, because a lot of us are doing a damn good job.
Yes. I would agree, Harry. I would agree that fathers are doing a damn good job, and they're doing it without a whole lot of praise. This takes nothing away from Black women who are holding it down,
No.
who are titans in their household. That's because my mother was a titan, and I am grateful for her sacrifices on my behalf, But there are some brothers out there who are doing the damn thing, and they need to be showcased.
Look, without question, woman rock, right? Without question. I mean, women have been holding it down forever. And I gotta admit, I mean, it's taken us a step or two to catch, we were not catching up, not even close. But to say, whoa, this is a race that men have to do with women.
Yeah.
So Dr. Brown's in the room. I'm gonna let him in.
Okay.
So but I see a lot of really good men fathers. Look, Bella and Daisy's father, he's been an excellent father. And he's a young Black man in America, and he's taking care of my granddaughters, and he's doing an excellent job. And but he has to go through all of those stops for no reasons, being stopped, pulled over by cops with my granddaughters in the car and everything. So he's had a hell of a time. And I'm so proud that he does such a great job in spite of everything that's on his back, and there's plenty of men like that. There's plenty of men who are holding it down.
Yes. I mean, I have brothers. I have two brothers, and they are amazing men. I watched them raise family. I watched them marry. I watched them buy houses. I watched them raise extended family, and I'm so proud, of them. And they don't get the accolades, they don't get the praise. Hey, Dr. Brown, nice
Morning.
to see
How are
you.
you, Babz? How are you,
Dr.
Harry?
Brown, I put on a fancy shirt because,
Oh, okay. Looks nice.
I needed some fancy because
Yeah, I
the world
understand.
is still upside down. Dr.
Yeah,
Brown.
I know.
And I didn't know what else to do. So I said, you know what? As you said, let me remind myself of who I am and whose I am, and I could move better. So, today, Dr. Brown, I'm talking to Black fathers. Kevin Walton and company will be on in about 15 minutes. And we're talking about Black fathers. And this is not a conversation to take away from Black mothers at all. But there seems to be a narrative that seems to be forever floating out there that Black fathers are absent and they don't care and they're never around, even though after all the studies and reports, the Pew study says Black fathers are some of the most attentive, supportive, caring, dedicated, around men on the planet.
Well, it's the unfortunate perpetuation of the stereotypic narratives about Black men, and it's really troubling on so many different levels. And even if you aren't a Black father, but simply a Black man, um, there's so much that goes on in our communities that's positive and good and wholesome that does not get reported. And with that, or just an assortment of Black men around the country who are acting as biological fathers or surrogate fathers to children in the communities, who again go unacknowledged, unrecognized, and unhonored.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a part of the ways in which racism is an integral part of the fabric of this country, so much has been placed upon the heads and shoulders of Black men for generations, as we've talked about. But I think that we have to do the best that we can where we can. I think that in spite of what we hear about what Black men may or may not be doing in our own spaces, we have to be committed to the ideals of those values and standards that were given to us by, our forefathers and foremothers. I recall a conversation I had with a cousin of mine about our beloved grandmother, who was born November 25th, 1900, and how she never had to raise her voice, Babz. I mean, when there were children misbehaving, and it may not have been her own children, but it may have been the children in the community, in the neighborhood. When she spoke in whispers, there was an instant response to it. And it was because of not only the ways that we were taught, but also the reverence and respect that we've always had for our elders. And I think that those ways of teaching not only bring forth a level of discipline, but within the discipline has always been nested just a prodigious amount of humanity and caring and compassion that goes with it. And so when you were fortunate enough to be in the homes of some of our elders and even people in our generation, you come away from that experience being enriched.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a level of humanity, but there's also the expectation that, hey, listen, when you walk out of this door, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing this family, and you are indeed representing the community. And I think that those are some of the values that Black men have done a masterful job of imparting through the generations. And I think that we have to individually and collectively continue to promote those ideals.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That is a good point. And I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I feel everything about that, just thinking about my own family story and my grandparents and both sides, and how they sort of handled things, and the way they disciplined, and the way that they talked to us, and the way that they imparted, right and wrong to us. That still carries me now. Like, it doesn't leave.
Yeah, remember the conversation we had a few weeks back where I was given the example of Mrs. Lewis in the doctor's office who was being addressed by her first name, and she's nearly an 80-year-old woman, and how we both collectively said almost at the same time, the only way you would address her would be as Mrs. Lewis. It wouldn't be by her first name, or maybe if you called her first name, it would be Miss Shirley, but it wouldn't be Shirley. It would be, either Miss Shirley or Miss Lewis. And it's that type of, and that extends obviously to anyone. It wouldn't just be an older person in our community, but anyone that you might encounter. So that level of discipline and the expectations that you are going to behave in certain prescribed ways has been a hallmark of what has helped us to not only keep a check on how we are, but also it has helped to strengthen our families.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that one of the topics that's obviously related to what Black fathers may or may not be doing is the casting of dispersions on Black families. And so that's another dimension to this, obviously. But I think that in this day and age, this is why it's so important to tell the stories of those who have transitioned, to talk about those who may have been born in the last century, about the experiences that they have had. And I think that one of the ways that we can really enhance the resilience and capacity of Black fatherhood is to share the stories. One of the things that I have encountered, especially with younger men who may have been able to go on to college and start careers as professionals, is that they are often unprepared for the insidious types of racism that they encounter. So they've checked all the boxes, they've done everything we've asked them to do, but they're in situations where they may not be able to name what it is that they are experiencing, but they know that they're experiencing something. And this was a hallmark of what we often found among Black families, especially those, if we're going back to the period of the Civil Rights Movement. So the idea that, we know more about the white community than the white community knows about us. Mm-hmm. And we have always used that as a tool, as an asset. But I think in this time where you have far more multiracial engagement, which is a great thing, there still is a need, I think, to be able to parse the nuances of the racism that is so subtle that if you aren't really, really dialed into it, you're going to miss it. And that's one of the benefits, I think, that the folk in our generation got a much larger dose of than the people who have come behind us. So what that means is our generation has to do a better job of saying, hey, listen, I know this is what it may appear to be, but in reality, it's something else. So let's have that conversation and talk about it.
Yes. What I find is that in talking to, like when I talk to my older children who are in their mid-20s, and listening to them talk about whatever's going on at work, and then sort of saying, well, that's a microaggression. Mm-hmm. And they hear it and they go, really? Yes. And explaining and talking about what that is, and then hearing them talk about all the microaggressions that they've experienced that they did not think was racist in its nature. They just thought, this is just how these people are just behaving toward me for no reason other than, they can.
And the other part of that is, what I'm not implying at all is that if any encounter with a white person may not be positive, that doesn't mean that it's racist.
Right.
And I think it's really important to say that. That individual may just be having a bad day, and you may have come, right in the middle of that, and the person may have reacted. So we've got to be sure that we are distinguishing properly. But in a climate where the insidious types of racism, or the more subtle variety, is so integrated in the fabric of the culture itself. For those of us who have that level of sensitivity and awareness to it, when we speak about this idea of being fatigued and exhausted, this is in part why. Because if you're not careful, you'll get so wound up with the microaggressions that you'll forget about trying to enjoy your day, or trying to get accomplished the things that you have on your list of items to complete. So it's challenging, yes, but we've got some wonderful playbooks to use as references, and I think as much as we can, we should share that information for those who are willing to hear it and listen to it.
So, the last time you were on the show, you had a lot to say about how you were feeling around the Daunte Wright murder, killing.
And now there's another one, but go on.
And now there's another one, a young sister, a 15-year-old sister that I'm just stunned at the amount of brute force that is always used on us. And I went back and deliberately watched videos of white folks getting in their cars and running off from cops. White folks telling cops to get out of my way. And I mean, there's video out there.
It is absolutely shocking. I mean, the idea, and I've seen it too, where
like lots of them.
where the white person not only gets out of the vehicle to confront the police, but they may be shouting obscenities and saying, "How dare you pull me over? You saw what I was trying to do. Now I'm getting back in my car and I'm going home, and don't say anything to me."
Yeah.
It's a different world, Babz.
It's a different. I deliberately went to go look at those because I had to process what happened to this young sister yesterday. I couldn't, he shot her 4 times in the chest, like just got out the car within seconds and and I'm thinking, and I know she had a knife in her. I mean, listen, I've been at parties where people, younger, somebody could diffuse a situation where people was getting it in, fighting, and there was no gunshot fired. So I know there is a real possibility of diffusing a situation without killing people.
That situation should have been handled far, far differently. And
I don't understand why we are always, I mean, I understand. We are always on the end of brute force.
And the other part of it is, one of those bullets could have easily passed through the young woman and hit the woman that she was in the altercation with. I'm just not able to make sense of it. And so 2 days ago, when the verdict was handed down, the news media, as you saw, really focused on Black communities around the country, obviously the communities in Minnesota. But what I didn't see much of was that this wasn't just a win for the Floyd family or the Black community. This was a win for America.
Yeah.
If we are really about this idea of racial justice and equity, and holding people in law enforcement who are not doing the right things accountable, to me, this is a win for the entire nation. But that's not how, at least what I've seen, that's not how it's being portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
And we still need to have a significant series of conversations about why it is that some police officers feel so comfortable in using lethal force. Now, we can talk about community policing and the importance and significance of that, but here we have yet another Black child gone because of a police officer's refusal to look at and analyze that situation, albeit in maybe a second, in a far different way, so that a more positive outcome could be produced.
Mm.
And it's just a piling on. And I mean, I have to tell you, the day that the verdict came down, I was a little nervous all day. I mean, I was, I had a lot of work to do, of course, but was really thinking about it. Then it finally came down, and then you have what has happened in the wake of that. So this verdict, in my estimation, is a beginning to a change that could be possible. But we're going to have to continue to look at this at the state, local, and federal levels very, very comprehensively.
Good morning, Kevin. It is lovely to see you. Unmute yourself. Good morning, Sean Reeves. It's lovely to
Good morning.
see
Morning.
you.
Good morning.
So let me y'all. This is Dr. Robert Brown. He's
Kevin and I know each other
okay. Good.
because we have worked on efforts with the Urban League of Southern Connecticut, and his wife, Dr. Karen DeVar Walton, is the author of the affordable housing section of State of Urban Connecticut. So it's good to see you.
Good seeing you too, which I had nothing to do with her authoring that, but thank you.
Well, it's a great piece.
So April 12th, Kevin Walton posted this on his Facebook page. As a father of two Black young men, ages 25 and 20, I fear for their lives every time they leave the house. In full transparency, I can't sleep until the back light is off. This past weekend has been very traumatizing. Between that 3-year-old baby and that 16-year-old in Hartford and Dante Wright in Minnesota, not to mention all the senseless violence that has gone unreported, I am triggered and I am not okay. And I was so moved by that level of vulnerability by a Black father that I responded with, as the mother of two sons, 22 and 19, I share your fear. As the mother of two daughters, 24 and 19, I am equally afraid for them too. This is how terrorism works. Raises fears inside of you so you never rest or know peace. A heightened state of awareness, each one of them leaves my presence or doesn't respond to my call or text. They want to live as free people, and I want that for them too. Unfortunately, there are forces out here that are in opposition to our freedom. And so I got to thinking about who is talking to Black fathers about how they are feeling and what they do with these feelings. So since I am very close to Kevin, I called him up and we started having this back and forth conversation about, do you want to come on and talk about this? And you can bring whoever you want to have this conversation. And I'll ask Dr. Brown and we'll just have a conversation about how Black fathers are feeling. Now, Dr. Brown was on earlier. And then before that, I was having this conversation with my producer, Harry Droz, and we were talking about this narrative that still plays, that Black fathers are absent, that they are not present, that they are not interested in raising their children, which is, we all know, is not true. There has been study after study, with the Pew study being one of the largest, saying that Black fathers are perhaps some of the most attentive, caring fathers on the planet. But yet this narrative still plays. But what I was most struck by was the level of vulnerability that we don't often see Black men have, that we don't get to see Black men pour out their hearts about what is happening to our children. So Kevin is here, and Sean is here, and Dr. Brown is here to sort of talk a little bit about how you are feeling and what the weight of this is like for y'all.
Yeah. Well, I first of all, good morning, everyone, and Babz, thanks for having this and using your platform to advance this. I think over the last, especially given the pandemic, and we've had this opportunity, and we realized the inequities that have happened, like they always do to our community. Personally, I've had lots of opportunities to talk to my my Black male friends, and it's albeit a small circle, but a lot of the vulnerabilities were coming up, and we often have these conversations. And, you know, I met Sean years ago when our kids played basketball together, and I've always been struck by the level of involvement of Black men, especially not growing up with my father in the household. And, you know, so learning on the fly how to be a father. But all of my friends and people I know and associated Black men have always been, for the most part, involved in their kids' lives. And so a lot of our conversations center on that, the vulnerable piece and the fear we have for our kids, especially our Black boys, and not to dismiss Black girls. I haven't raised Black girls. But we all share that fear, and it often ends up us talking about that conversation that we have to have with our young Black boys about the interactions with the police,
And the same message of, you know, making sure your job is to survive the incident and make it home and we can deal with it. But I often speak from a place of my personal privilege where, you know, Karen and I have the means to be able to really address that. If something were to happen to our kids, we have the means to go out and address it. I don't necessarily mean the financial means, but just, you know, knowing people and having the ability to go out and advocate and articulate. But not everyone has that, right? And I don't want to get too far into the weeds, though, when you talk about how people end up in prison because of plea deals, because they don't have the ability to fight it, even if they're innocent. So I think my being vulnerable is just something that we weren't taught to be growing up. And I feel comfortable enough with myself, but also supported by my village and my friends that it's okay to say we're not okay. And it's okay to say we're fearful for our kids and other kids that we're involved with.
Right. My personal standpoint, I'm born and raised in New Haven. I come from,
I watched your video on the garden the other day.
We're out there gardening now. That's why my appearance is this. You know, we're tending
I'm coming over there because I want some of that garden. But go ahead.
Listen, it's our village garden. You know, it's our responsibility to uphold the space. But you know, 10 years ago, my son was murdered in the city of New Haven. 16 years old. Turned my life upside down. Right. Already traumatized, coming from a street background. You know, probably spent 10 years in that area, a couple of incarcerations, but I've always had a fear for my son's lives, right? I have one more son, he's now 12. He's far in Maryland, in a pretty safe zone, but at the end of the day, he's still a Black man, right? We're still looked at differently, especially those that voice their opinions. Right, my son is very articulate, just as I am. I have a 13-year-old daughter who I really won't let out the house to walk to the corner store for fears. And it's not just fears of the police, but you know, all fears right now. And this is why I am a little bit more vigilant in my approach for community organization and redevelopment of our Black and brown communities, because there's not enough protectors on these corners. Making sure our babies are going to get to and from safe anymore. When I was a kid, I had all of those protections. I didn't really live in a state of fear from police as a child, more so as an adolescent. Once I got to a point where I was standing as tall as an officer, then I had to become a lot more fearful. My grandfather would have a lot more intricate conversations with me about keeping my mouth shut when police stopped you. Right? They beat my uncle up very bad one day. And this is just the nature of our community at the moment. But traumatized, we're all traumatized. Every Black male that lives here is fearful for their child, especially walking out of the house now. It's almost like we're being assaulted and there's a war on us by police. Even a lot of our community members, they don't have any, they don't believe in us anymore. So, you know, there's almost like a mental war just walking past a lot of your neighbors who look at you for the color of your skin and realize and don't really know whether you're selling drugs, trying to steal a car, or whatever the case may be. So, you know, it's a difficult situation, and nobody deals with it. I haven't had any real therapy since my son's death, right? My therapy is the investment that I put into these children who look like me, who don't have fathers, whom I hear those small cries for help, guidance, you know, small supports and things like that, and just trying to figure out how do they live through the day.
So I'm struck by the weight of the world that you are carrying, and how do you manage to put one foot in front of the other and get through a day?
People like Kevin Walton, his wife, and every other community member who I almost forgot at a time that I grew up around. These people have been very instrumental in the last 10 years of my life. Every day they wake up and give me an encouraging word. It's been times I just woke up, it was money in my Cash App account, no questions asked. And then just to be able to know once I pull out that chessboard and can touch a kid and tap into his mind, where he starts asking me questions and I can just kind of give him a little bit of information, something that I might have got late in life that I could share early with him. Those are the things that that make me get up in the morning and give me the strength to want to keep going.
Mm-hmm. So Kevin, I was struck by how many people responded to your post. Like how many people chimed in, men and women chimed in to co-sign, this is how I'm feeling too, that I'm not okay. We have a lot of people who are not okay. And I've never heard so many people who I know and admire say that in unison.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it goes back to the fact that growing up, the messages that we received as Black people and Black men especially is that we can't show our emotions, we can't show our feelings. So I think people have always not been okay, right? 52 years on this earth, if you think about, Sean talked about trauma, if you're a Black man and a Black woman in America, you've been impacted, right? Directly, indirectly, but probably more directly. So maybe people have always been feeling vulnerable and not okay, but the messages we receive, Black folk, is like, we don't talk about that. We don't express it. We keep it in. And so I'm at a point where I don't want to keep it in. And sometimes you just say things that are on your mind. But, one of the things I want to address, what Sean talked about, Sean's unspeakable tragedy, I admire his strength so much because his story is one of vulnerability, right? Here's a person who's not shy about telling you what his past has been, but I met him at a point where he was a father to his son. And his son, who I had the pleasure of coaching, was a friend with my children, Kevin and really Kevin, but Caleb was younger watching up. And, how it impacted them. Right, I come from a place in New York where by the time I, turned 21, I lost about 20 friends to violent deaths, right? And I didn't want that for my kids. And then here they are at, Sean, 13, 14, and Caleb maybe at 11. This is what they're dealing with. And now we have to have that conversation with them. And so Sean's strength is something that gives me strength to keep going on and allow me to be vulnerable. I think the other thing that allows us to get up is to say, hey, you know what we're going through pales into comparison to what our kings and queens who were kidnapped and enslaved in this country, right? And so if we were to lay down and give up, because I'm tired, I'm exhausted, but I think about, what they had to go through here after they were kidnapped in this country. And it would be a shame if I said I can't push forward because I'm tired or I'm exhausted or I'm fearful of something. We don't have time to be fearful. We can feel fear, but we don't have time to be fearful. We have to keep it pushing. And that's for the ancestors, and that's for the future, and that's for all of stolen greatness that we lost, including Sean Reeves Jr. And especially Sean Reeves Jr. Because if you knew this kid, you would know it was stolen greatness.
Dr. Brown.
Well, I'm heartbroken to hear about your loss, Sean. But I think one of the silver linings, and I hope it's not lost on you, is how strong you are. I mean, the idea that you would share such a personal and traumatizing experience really before the world speaks to your character and strength. But I also want to give thanks to Kevin for the brotherhood and leadership that he has brought forth. One of the things that I know is that it can be exceptionally difficult for Black men just to say, I'm afraid, I don't have the answers, I don't know, I can't do what I said I was going to do, because of all of the garbage that's been heaped on us. But one of the things that has helped to get me through some of my lower moments, And let me acknowledge that Kevin is a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. You know that I'm an Alpha. One of the things that has helped has been the kinship ties that we have in the Black community. And so we may have cousin after cousin after cousin after cousin, but there's no blood relationship, but there is a kinship tie that has really helped to reduce some of the impact of all these stresses, but also to validate our humanity. And I think that that is what is often missing, that we are as human as the next person. We feel very deeply. We are significantly impacted when our children are not safe, they're not well. But there are few mechanisms for us to turn to when it begins to go wrong or it's going wrong and we don't have a way out. And I think that that is what is something that has never really been addressed. So we're left to ourselves to try to do the best that we can with what we have available to us.
So Kevin, do you think that we are at a place, that Black men are at a place in this particular point in history, that they are finding it necessary to stand in their vulnerabilities and say, I'm not okay, and still be seen as strong, productive, loving, caring men?
I think that's a great question. And I think my answer is one of optimism and hope, right? And I would think that as long as we're aligning ourselves with people who feel that way, then we'll be okay. I mean, you know, for us to be strong for our community, that it's going to take everyone to be strong, right? But I also personally feel that Black men have to take a stance in their community, right? And to be able to take our community back. But part of that means changing the narrative. Dr. Brown spoke brilliantly, talked about validating our humanity. I'm at a point in my life, I don't think I need to validate my humanity to anyone, right? You know, the way I walk up and show on this earth shows my humanity. And that goes for each and every one of us, right? But also that there are far too many mechanisms for us to turn to. I go back to, again, how we were raised, how we can't be soft, you can't show emotion, and you have to take things in. That's probably what leads to high hypertension rates with Black men, right? Because we take all of that pain and we keep it in, or we self-medicate, you know, so all those things become directly related. But I'm at a point where I think if we're allowing our vulnerability to show, then maybe that becomes the impetus for us to help start changing our narrative, right? We talk about that young sister who lost her life the other day, and I'm not saying I'm ready to jump in front of somebody that's swinging a butcher knife, but if you look around at all of the adults who were just kind of allowing that to fester, I don't want that to be our narrative, because now that narrative is being played across the entire world and it's taking this cop off the hook because we're saying that this child's out of control and we had these adults standing around, and, you know, and we have to be the ones to, I think at the end of the day, we have to be the ones to change the narrative, right? We need our bully pulpits. We need more shows like Babz, right, to give us that platform, and we need to change the narrative.
So let me just go back, just as a quick clarification. When I say validate your humanity, I absolutely agree with you. I'm not looking for that, nor am I espousing it. But what I'm saying is, when you have a deeply oriented conversation with another Black man, there's a level of understanding and compassion that you can't get from anyone else. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean, because he is the most likely to get where you may be more than anyone else on the face of the earth. So that's what I meant. But
if I may, sure, I know you're going to jump in. Let me say this, Dr. Brown. I wasn't referring to you. I was referring to just in general, like when they want to bring in.
Oh, I see. Yeah, police, yeah, sure.
And they want to bring the police in to talk to us as we make them comfortable. Or when I have to sit in front of board 10 officials who blow a basketball game, and then they say, well, maybe we can have our officials come in and meet your kids so your kids can get to know us. No, my kids don't need to get to know you, right? You got to check yourself. Right. And that's what I mean about we don't have to validate our humanity.
Right. No, I get it. No,
Right. And this is like just a community garden in a sense, right? I have a lady that's been in my neighborhood for a couple of years now, I believe. But one thing she spoke about was adopting us in our neighborhood. I'm like, first of all, I wasn't a lost kid or a lost soul, right? My neighborhood's not lost. But when you come and try and adopt a neighborhood just because you're the same skin tone as us and don't deal with our kids, how do you make that connection, right? So in order to minimize the effects of what's transpiring here by those that look like us and represent something that's a false narrative, I decided to take the space. So we have a garden. The tenant that used to tend the garden, he's in his 90s, and I believe he had gotten sick over during the pandemic, so he hasn't tended to the garden. So once I noticed it, all the vegetation growing, I was like, you know what? We're gonna go out here and we're gonna tend to this garden like we're supposed to. For one, this gentleman tends to the garden and gives the food away to the community members, whereas somebody else that comes into our community, they tend to the gardens and they don't give the community members anything, right? So there's a difference. We have to take back our space, but in taking back our space, we're showing vulnerability over there that men have the means to take and tend to things properly, right? We understand the process of evolution and growth. And, the goal is to bring as many children into that space as possible so that they can begin to own their community and feel like they own themselves in their community and they have a voice here, right? We've become a voiceless people. We watch people come in and out of this place and we don't feel like we have voices anymore, but there's no real strong male representation to accentuate that at the moment. You know what I mean? We watch our women do a lot of the work and they're tending to our children. They're still being disrespected by these higher ups, and it's just time to change, but again, Black males need to show their vulnerability to allow mankind and to see our humanness, because we're human more than anyone, right? We love our children more than anybody on this planet. And there's nothing that we can't do, but we have to take that veil down that we're gorillas and that we're villains. You know what I mean?
I find it interesting that you chose a garden, because gardening and land and property is so much a part of our history and our story and our culture. Even if you don't know a damn thing about a garden, you know somebody in your family that owns some land down south or something, and you. So it's a wonderful metaphor for moving forward, because you could have easily have said, you know what, we'll have a basketball team, or we'll have a soccer team, or we'll have a bike club, or we'll have something. But you chose a garden. I mean, was that
Right.
deliberate, or did you just walk by and say, you know what, I'm just going to take this on?
I like outdoors for one. We understand there's tranquil moments outside, especially early morning, when the dust is settling and things of that nature. So it's really about giving kids an outdoor atmosphere. We don't have tranquilness in our community. We're plagued by bullets, sirens, fast moving vehicles all day long. We don't have tranquil spaces here, so just to be able to now incorporate these things into the mix, especially with the chessboard. The chessboard is a quiet game. All you have to do is have a place to sit, and you can be there for hours and hours and hours. In a garden or a nice space, a green space, is the perfect place for our kids to develop and recultivate themselves. It's a perfect space for men to begin to re-mentor these young minds into some new ideals about themselves. I come from a gardening family. My grandmom had a garden right outside of the same house that I'm living in now. This is how she was feeding our family for many, many years. And the gardening, it shows kids the process of evolution. We live in a microwave society. Our kids want everything yesterday. And that's not how the world works. We really need to take a step back so that way they can take 4 steps forward, because they're very exceptional, but they're just missing a few key pieces about the elements and the processes of how life actually transpires. And I think planting is a good way to show them that.
Mm-hmm. So Kevin, when you go back to your coaching life at some point, you'll go back to your coaching life. Do you go back with a? I mean, I would imagine that as a coach of color, a Black coach, that you already build in some lessons that you have to impart to your athletes that go beyond just this is how we're gonna play this game. That you feel like you have to give them some life skills, some life conversations.
I actually think he's a mentor before a coach.
So when you go back to this life, when you go back to that world, do you go back with this sense of now I want them to know something about vulnerability. I want them to know that it's not about being hard, that it is about saying, this is how I'm feeling, this is what is happening, and not have to hide that or deflect that as often young Black men, boys have done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think we use basketball is just the carrot, right? The caveat that allows us to spend time with young men and as role models, as mentors, as Sean mentioned, and as people are going to help them develop the necessary skills to be successful in life. And we do that in partnership with the parents who are paramount, and we do that in partnership with the school, but also teaching them about being good stewards of their community. And part of that is talking about their vulnerability and how they approach basketball, how they approach school, how they approach relationships. One of the things we don't allow them to do in practice is to use the N-word. We're not going to refer to each other as that.
Hold on one second, Kevin. We have to do FCC rules, station identification. So go ahead, Harry, play it. Because I know we have to do it.
Hi, this is Bella, and you are listening. W N H L P 1 O G point 5 F M New Haven streaming live at www.
New Haven Independent.
No, Sherry. Yeah.
Perfect. .org.
.org.
Thank you. That's Harry's granddaughter. Now she was very little when she did that. She's much older now. And she wants him to stop running it.
I'm sure she does.
But it's one of my favorite ways to call out the letters. So finish, Kevin.
Yeah, I wonder, does that suffice when she gets that New Haven Independent? I'm not sure. She was done and she's like, okay. But that was great. Thank you, Bella. So I was saying, when we talk about language with our kids and communication, so we don't allow them to refer to each other as the N-word, anything referring to sexuality, and we'll stop practice and we'll stop and we'll, even if it's on the bus, and we'll have that conversation. And it's about helping them to develop as leaders. One of the things that in basketball, if you're familiar, the guys are playing, they say, oh, if they want you to take a shot, oh, lay her. Right. And then we have to stop and say, we're not going to say that either, because we're not going to talk as if women are less than us and anything of that nature. So for me, it's really big about language. And I think that ties into, because if they can start seeing the world, not only from their perspective, but seeing it from a different perspective, how things impact other people, how their language and their behaviors impact other people, perhaps they can be okay with being vulnerable. And when we say vulnerable, I just want to put this out there. It's not about being soft. It's not about being emotional. It's about saying, hey, you know what? Talking about what's on your heart. I'm not okay, right? Because when we're happy and we're elated, we'll say, yo, I'm psyched, I'm geeked, right? And we're able to express that, right? But, or if we're sad, we say, yo, man, sorry for this and that. But like, when it's like, yo, bro, I'm a little fearful. right? Now I might Dr. Brown and Sean and Bal, you can relate. Like if you're going somewhere you're not supposed to be going, you'd be like, yo, I don't know about this, and your man be like, yo, you scared? You like, I ain't nobody scared, but you fearful, you're terrified, right? And then if you're waiting for that dude to say, all right, let's get out of here, but he'll be like, oh, come on, man, let's go. You all right? He'd be like, okay. You know what I mean? But so vulnerability isn't soft. It means, listen, this is how I'm feeling. I'm able to express it. And I think between that 3-year-old baby Randall Jones and that young other man in Hartford happened within hours. And then we had Dante Wright on top of everything that was going off. And then on top of all of the kind of the ills of our distressed communities here in New Haven that often play itself out in violence, I just was feeling, and that's how I was feeling at the time. Like, I needed a mental health day from work. I couldn't even go to work that Monday, right? Because I just wasn't in a good space. But I'm thinking that if people who, my players or people who like me and love me and support me, feel that's helpful for them, then we'll continue pushing forward. But I don't say that I'm vulnerable just so I can get some type of reaction. I was just being like, that's how I feel, and it's okay, because I know that I have family and friends that love and support me, and if people are going to hate and say one thing, that's fine, but I'm not really concerned about them, because we have to continue to move this community forward.
I think what was telling was that the minute that you posted it, it was like a permission slip for everybody else to go, yes,
change the narrative.
I feel this way. If Kevin Walton, who can say this, and I know you to be a strong, solid brother, I'm a Delta, you a Q, we go back, I get it. But if you could stand in that space and say, I'm not okay, it gave everybody permission to say, I'm not okay either. I'm not okay either. And I hurt. Which I think is the domino effect of a positive thing that people are allowed to sort of say, because everybody's walking around with this tension and this weight and not knowing when to release it, when to say that they. Now, I know women are very good at gathering with women friends, sister friends. We are very good at processing and talking these things out. I have sorors, I have girlfriends, I have a sister, I have all these things, tools at my disposal. I don't know if brothers have that. I worry about brothers having that. And if brothers can get in conversation and have real conversation with each other about that. It's like when I saw the film One Night in Miami that Regina King just did with
Love that movie.
With Malcolm X and Sam Cooke and Muhammad Ali, who was Cassius Clay at the time. I mean, I thought, and Jim Brown. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen Black men of that power come together and have these very real conversations about how they were feeling. Like we saw Malcolm X be afraid, and it was stunning and beautiful. So go ahead, Dr. Brown.
But we're told that we're not supposed to do that. We're told that if we do that, that it's going to besmirch our manhood, whatever that's supposed to mean. But going back to the piece that Kevin did, what he did was very, very powerful. What he did was, to me, Kevin, it wasn't about you expressing vulnerability. What you were doing, you were exalting your humanity. That's what you were doing. And, the irony of this to me is we were the first people who walked on the face of the earth. We gave life and form and civilization and language and culture and science to everybody else. Yet we are the people that are maligned as being less than. That I digress. But my point is, this idea of exalting your humanity cannot be overstated. And think about it. We are unique in our ability to make other people around us who are not of the same ethnicity, race, or culture feel welcomed. That's a gift. I don't know that there's another group, and I'm not saying that they may not exist, that does it in the way that we do. I look at the way that the girlfriend of George Floyd has been embraced by his family. And so the question I ask is, if the situation were reversed, if George Floyd was white and his significant other was a Black woman, would she have been embraced in the same way that his family has embraced the real girlfriend? And again, I'm not casting dispersion on other groups of people, but there is a depth of humanity and understanding and compassion that is unique. And I think that that is something that is far too often not celebrated. So we can go from the most horrific of circumstances and tragedies and make something good come out of it in spite of what the narrative around us might be. And so as we've talked about before, understanding not only who we are, but whose we are in the context of the times in which we find ourselves is really, really important. So the work that Sean and Kevin are doing with young people, you know, to me, that amounts to the work of the Almighty, because our objective for each of us is to help leave a world that is far better than when we got here. That's the whole point of this. And that means that we have to take our children where they are, but we have to go back to some of those old school values that we were talking about earlier and be sure that we are holding our young people accountable, but we are doing so in ways that are loving and supportive.
Right. And as men, holding ourselves accountable now more than ever. You know, we've been a missing element inside of our communities for quite a long time due to all the systemic issues that have pushed males out of the household, right? Now you have us standing on street corners feeling like most of us feel like we're really nobody. The best we are paychecks, to some people, and, just roundups to the rest, right? So getting ourselves back into a space where we realize that we have to stand in the space and be the voices for our children along with their moms. We have to stand in the space and have our own voices be heard, because everybody claims to be speaking for us, but no one ever comes and speaks to us about us, right? Even those that represent us in our community or claim to represent us in our community, they never really come into the neighborhoods where you have those drug dealers, pimps, and pushers, right? And talk to them and ask them what would it require for them to want to change, right? They don't come and ask those questions. They come and they might solicit a vote here and there, but they don't come and really dig and really transfer that information to us to empower us to be more, to shoot for more. And it's a sad thing. But, myself in the space that I'm in now, if I have another 50 years, it's not enough for me. I have so much in my mind and so much that I know that I now can share with the world. My job is to make sure I infuse and empower these children with that same energy as early as possible. So that way they don't have to wait till they're 48, 49, and 50 to decide to be that change that they want to see.
So as we wrap this up a little bit, because I know you all have places to be, and I appreciate your time, I want you each to talk a little bit about what being a father has meant to you. And at the end of the day, what do you want your children to know about you and how you tried or did father parent them?
I'll go first. I was selling drugs when I had my first child. The day that kid popped out of that womb was a day that I started planning to change my life. I knew I needed to do better. I knew I needed to be better. And I wanted better for my son and myself, right? My children are everything to me. I can't even begin to tell you some of the sacrifices I've made to ensure that I remain here safe, especially for my daughter who no longer has a mom now. You know, her mom passed away the following year. My son died, and she was 4, turning 5. You know, so there's a lot of things that I had to do. I had to realize very quickly that I couldn't let any of my pain or my confusion take me away from this child's life. So I had to kind of just sit and just figure it all out. You know, again, like I said, I was fortunate to run into a few intelligent minds, powerful enough to help me navigate some rough waters. You know, had I not run into them people, I'd probably either be in jail or be dead right now. One is my mentor and my partner for the academy today. His name is Edward Trimble. But there's many others, Howard Hill, amongst other people, you know, people that I've never, before my son's tragedy, I've never run into these gentlemen before in my life. But like I said, they've been instrumental. Kevin's been instrumental. So many of those basketball families that I grew up in, coming out of prison and getting into that family have been instrumental. And it's important, man, that everybody knows we as fathers, we care. We love our children dearly. We'll probably all lay down our lives for any one of these children if need be. And that's an understatement.
That's powerful, and you know, I'm glad Sean went first because I was getting, you know, a little emotional because when I talk about my kids and my goal was to be a better father than my father was, and I often talk about, you know, my mother had a long time boyfriend who was in the house, and he showed me about what hard work meant, and you know, things like that. But you know, we didn't necessarily have a father-son relationship in a sense where we teach him lessons, although he taught indirect lessons. But my angst and my anger that I grew up with my life was around my real father, who chose to not be in my life, and who chose to have, you know, just did some other things. And I remember when I got the phone call that he passed away, you know, I cried and I cried and I cried, and I didn't know why, because I really didn't like this man. And Karen just told me, she said, you know, you mourn the relationships you have and you mourn the relationships you don't have. And I was mourning the relationship I didn't have, but I always thought that when I had kids, I was going to pour everything into them. And I think my number one job in life is to be a good father to them. And what you mean, say good, that's to your own terms. But to me, it's to show them how to treat them, be respectful of themselves, how to be respectful of others, how to, treat their mother, right? Because I can't tell them how to treat women, but I can show them how I treat their mom, and the relationship that we have, how we communicate with each other, and just instill in them, you know, just values, right? But it's just this love that you have. I didn't think you have some love for another human being that I have for my kids. And, but you know, the thing is, when they walk out that door, we just hope that they remember the lessons that they're taught, right? Because, you know, I sit here, but for the grace of God, just like sure, you know, growing up in New York, but I'm sitting here by the grace of God because I was nobody's angel, right? But here I am. And I want to go back to saying something that, you know, though my kids are 20 and 25, so they're in that stage where someone mentioned it here, and I said it's a process, right? Because between, you know, when you get to be considered a man in society, especially a black man, we'll use Tamir Rice as the bar, right? At 12 years old, for a black man, up until about 25 to 30 years old, you're still in that vulnerable stage, and it's a process. And so at 52, I have no qualms with talking about my vulnerability. But at 16 to 20, 16, when they told me I would never make it to 21 and to 25, you know, I don't know. And you talk about how people can do what they do. I didn't have the ability to talk this out. And so that's one of the things I'm trying to instill in my kids is like, you have to be strong, you have to be tough, but you also have to navigate this world in where you're being in a safe space, providing a safe space. So for me, being a father is probably the most pressure that I feel, right? It's to continue to be a role model, be able to provide. Now we're at the stage of helping them and also sharing my mistakes with them, right? What I could have done differently as a father, what I could have done differently as a husband, right? And for them to manifest that and to take that with them into their lives.
Yeah, that's incredibly powerful words from these two men. And, you know, for me, it all changed on Friday, August 17th at 8:47 p.m. You know, that's when my daughter came into the world. And I was not ready for her, but that was not important. At that moment, I decided that I had to find a way to step up, and that it stopped being about me. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but my heart was always in the right place. I always loved my daughter dearly and would do anything for her. And you know, in my journey to become a man, and I've spoken with you about that when that happened for me, it was always about what can I do to help ensure that she has a childhood where she can grow up to be a young woman and adult who is unafraid. And what I mean by that is giving her the information and the strategies and the lessons learned from the mistakes that I had made and sometimes continue to make, in such a way where she would not have to repeat some of the things that I did. But also understanding that, you know, as a father, you do the best that you possibly can with the resources that you may have. But ultimately, Babz, it's up to your child. And you hope that what you have poured into them puts them in a situation where they can make good decisions. And one of the things I would always say to her when she was younger was, you know, don't just think about now, but think about down the road and around the corner. And so as I think about how quickly these 36 years have gone by, I just can't believe it. And now she has a husband and 2 children of her own. So I hope that some of what I have done has been meaningful enough for her to incorporate it into her own living. And I have seen that. But I think the other part of it is, as much as she has, or as much as I have attempted to teach her, she's really taught me quite a bit as well. That there's more than one way to do something. There are different points of view on issues. And you know, as a woman now, I have to respect that. You know, I mean, I remember when she was a kid, she was probably about 14 to 15. She asked, well, Dad, when do you think would be a good age for me to start dating? I said, I'm guessing 31 would be about right. What do you think? And she sort of laughed about it. But it's been the greatest honor of my life.
By far.
Absolutely.
So appreciate this conversation. I got more than I thought I intended to get out of this conversation. As I said at the top of this show, I just wanted to have Black fathers come on and have opportunity to share what they were feeling. And I was not prepared for this level of vulnerability. So I thank you for your time and your words and your very realness. And I think people, as my phone is blowing up, people are crying and carrying on about they've never seen anything like this, you know. I'm just grateful that I know y'all. And I want the very best for you all. And as long as I have a platform here, you all have a platform here. I'm just in awe of the beauty and the majesty of all of y'all to share. And I mean, some of y'all know my story. I didn't have a good father, you know, I did not. But I was blessed enough to have men in my life who were amazing and made that made that loss almost inconsequential for me, that I turned out better than I should have given the circumstances. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Babz.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Check out that Sport Academy.
I'm coming to the garden because I need a place to grow roses. When I sold my house and moved into this apartment, I was like, ooh, I don't have roses. So I'm gonna come in and put some roses.
Yes, Les, we're working on the bee, getting the beehive over there as well too, because you know bees are important to the process
Yes,
of the
they
growth.
are. I want roses though. I'll bring my own roses. I'll buy them and I'll put them in, but I need roses.
I need to plant some too. I usually bring roses to my lady once a week, so it might save my
Come
pocket a
on,
few extra
Sean,
dollars.
man.
Hey,
Come
listen,
on,
man, you got to keep a smile on your woman's face, especially when they're doing you well. You know, it's the things I learned along the way, brother.
That's right.
I'm just
And
saying.
you know what? You are absolutely right, brother. And I hope
man.
women brothers hear that.
You're
Yes.
doing it right up until this point, Sean. Man.
Ladies and gentlemen, listen, you guys have a wonderful day, Babz.
Yeah,
We'll be out
thank
there
you,
for
Babz,
4
and
hours
thanks
if
for
you
the
ever stop
platform.
by.
Yeah, thanks
Okay.
for the platform.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thanks, everyone.
brothers.
Be well.
I love
Great
y'all
day.
very much. Thank y'all.
Love you too. Have a good one.
Be with you. So anybody, y'all can click off as you feel the necessary. Harry, any
Hey.
thoughts, Harry?
Wow. That, it's good to see men be vulnerable. I think it's something young men it's absent in the learning process of young men. We don't know how to be vulnerable when we're young. And in place of that vulnerability, we substitute it with anger a lot of times. So, that was an exceptional conversation there, and it is something we need to bring to the young folks. It'll help so much if we start learning stuff earlier. But yeah, that was exceptional, Babz.
Yeah, I was quite moved by that, Harry. Like I knew it was going to be a good conversation. I knew it was going to be a rich conversation, but sometimes you just don't know how much people are willing to give, of their personal story in these kinds of experiences, because once the cameras go on, people sort of step back, but this conversation was as if there was no camera or microphone.
Yeah.
It was as if we were just sitting on my porch or somewhere having this conversation.
Yeah, you could workshop this, this is look, I look at stuff like this. I'll go to TED Talks and stuff. This is what that was, so and it was just scratching the surface. I mean, like I said, you could do a whole workshop on this.
Yeah.
It's and I don't want to get too vulnerable myself, so but it's I'm sitting here going, yeah, I'm not gonna cry.
Harry, it's getting very close there. I'm gonna tell you something.
I tell you what. No, look,
listen, when that brother said when he talked about when he lost his child to gun violence, I don't know what that pain is like. I do not, but I've lost loved ones. So I know what a loss is.
Yeah, I mean
but that's a whole other stratosphere right there, Harry. Like that's a
Yeah, I mean, I've lost a brother-in-law to gun violence. It's a hard thing. And the conversations are hard before the fact. After the fact, the conversations are easier because you see the consequence of a lot of stuff. But having the conversations before the fact, where you are called soft for having these conversations, it's hard. I had conversations. I had these tough conversations with my friends where I wasn't going to follow them into certain areas in life, you know? And, you know, my good friends understood that I wasn't going down the path with them. And then the others, some of them saw you as soft. And it's hard. What's his name? Kevin? He was talking about like stuff like he was reading it out of my life story, you know. So it gets deep. It gets deep. A lot of it cuts really deep, and this is what I mean. A lot of young men are going through it now, and I think having somebody you could relate to is important. Having these mentors. So I don't know how you take this show, Babz, and bottle it and hand it out to the people who need it, but I don't know.
I just thought this was probably one of my favorite conversations that we've had. And, you know, we've done a lot. We've talked. We've had great conversations always, but this was very important to me. It was just important to me because I know the good that these men do, and not just these men, but I know so many other men who are great fathers. Now, and not just Black men. I know some white men who, I mean, I think Andrew is a great father to his daughter Sophie. Like, he's an amazing dad. And I will say this, he's amazing to my kids. I mean, he really is amazing to my kids. He always has time for them. They can call him, and they call him, and they talk to him. And he has time for them. He's not even related to them.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy how, because the light, the bits of light that I saw in my life came from my younger brother's father, which I saw as my stepfather. You know, he came in and he showed me some responsibility and talked about how you're supposed to treat a woman and hard work. And, you know, it was just bits of how to be a man. It's just, but it was just, he came in so late after I had been, you know, a young boy dragged through life already, and I had the scars, and, you know, I didn't know which side was up. And you get these men into your life. This is why I'm saying that these conversations need to be brought to the young men, because I know I was scarred and I was living in a dark hole mentally until I did get some form of an education on being a man. And it took me a long time to get those small lessons I learned,
Yeah.
but I got them. And I always referenced him in those, as I was growing up. I'm like, I remember him telling me this, and I would repeat the things that I should do, who I should be, and stuff like that. So it's hard. These conversations are so hard, Babz, because you do have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to
Yeah.
get to bring it out, but woo.
Yeah. No, it was good. I mean, I thought Dr. Brown was amazing. I thought Sean was brave. And I think Kevin opened the door to these kinds of conversations. Opened the door to that men, successful men, can say, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You know how powerful that is? Successful men successful Black men can say, you know what, I'm not okay. Instead of doing this cool pose thing.
No.
Like I have it all together. I'm strong. You can be all those things, yes, but you can also say, I'm not okay. The order of these things that have been happening have affected me, and I'm not okay.
Yeah, it's the first step. It's the first step, but it's getting, sometimes that step is, 10,000 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's a hard step. The first step is the hard step. For me, it was looking in the mirror and telling myself, you're not okay. You're bordering on dangerous. You're this, you're that. I lectured myself, but those lectures were rooted in that man that came into my life, 8 years before, and said those words. You plant the seed. It took a while for the seed to sprout, but it did. And I was able to look in that mirror and tell myself to stop it, to change directions. So yeah, I mean, we need it. This is food for the soul. And
yeah, that's a good way to say that, Harry. This was food for the soul. This was food for the soul. It really was. And I hope people take away from it or go to their circle of men friends and just continue these kinds of discussions, and be vulnerable with each other. Because these are tough times.
These are, these are tough times. These are tough times. But these conversations need to be had regardless of these, because to say these are tough times is an understatement. This is Category 5 hurricane in the middle of a storm times. But these conversations need to be had when you're not in a hurricane.
Right.
So
right.
Because these are the building blocks that young men, especially the chaos that's going on in our lives. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain how out of control sometimes your mind is, and how you feel like the world is against you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just no way out. Sometimes there's just no way out but through anger. It's just, anger is your outlet, your avenue. That's it. So it's these conversations are needed. I'm telling you, it shouldn't take, I mean, it was a slow process for me, but it shouldn't take into your 30s where you're going aha if you even get to your 30s.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I saw a lot of my friends and my family never made it. Never made it. My youngest brother, you know, just passed last year. And it was, these are the things that were going on in their lives. It's just, it's how to get, you know, it's crazy. Because I've used the term myself, the pull yourself up by the bootstraps, but it's impossible sometimes. It's impossible. It's impossible. You're on the ground, and what you need is somebody to give you a hand.
Yeah.
There's just no way, no other way up.
Yeah.
For somebody to reach out and give you a hand.
Truth. That is the truth, Harry.
You know, so it's us extending our hands. There's a lot of people who need us, who need that hand to be extended to them. And I think this show did just that. I hope people share this show, because if it's hard for you to talk about it, like it's hard for me to talk about it a lot. Share the show. You know, you could start the conversation that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is Thursday.
Hey, look.
It's just Thursday. God help us if we. Well, tomorrow I got Ann Harrison on from the Workforce Alliance at 9:30 to talk about economic job stuff. So it'll be a departure from this.
No, well, that's needed too.
Yes, yes.
That's definitely needed.
Yes, people are starting to go back to work, and
yeah.
There are opportunities out there that people should know about and be aware of.
And after this pandemic, a lot of people are changing their jobs. A lot of people, the jobs they had are no longer available. So yeah, the conversation tomorrow is going to be important too.
Yeah,
So
yeah, because I mean, we've got a lot of recovery to get through on a lot of levels, you know, and it's not anything that's going to happen in 90 days, you know. I mean, we just have a lot to get through, you know. And
well, I think the forecast was, the last I read, which was months ago, but the forecast was 2024.
that sounds about right.
For the job market and everything to recover.
Yeah, because you know what, Harry? As long as schools are still closed or halfway open, parents have to make real decisions about how to go back to work and when to go back to work. You know, because that's a real thing. Because one, you cannot leave kids alone because people frown on that and they'll call the Department of Children and Families on you.
Yeah.
So you can't do that. You can't take them to your work. You can't leave them in a car in the parking lot at your work. Right? So, because the majority of people working have kids. You know, it's one thing, you know, high school kids are a whole separate matter. But when you got third graders and second graders and pre-K, I mean, you know, daycare is closed down everywhere.
You know, I forgot where I went the other day, where the cashier actually had her daughter next to her. But I'm thinking, was it the dollar store? It was one of these stores in the, you know, the small malls. I think some employers, look, it's a new age. A lot of us could work from home. employers thought we couldn't, right?
Mhm.
We couldn't work from home. And now some employers, until things get right, you might have to let your employee bring their child and have them sit next to them. You know, don't make that ultimatum where you say you want your job or you got to leave your child alone. You can't do that.
You can't do it. You
So-
can't do it.
So you have to open your mind up. Like I said, they thought that we couldn't work from home.
A lot of
most-
places, remember they used to say
Yeah.
that, Harry? No, you have to be in the office. Now these places are like, ooh, we can give up our offices. We can give
Yeah,
up
now
this
they're like, you know
office."
what? Now they're like, don't come back. How about you stay home? You're 30% more productive from home. You know, so yeah, so we have to change the way we see employment.
Yeah.
As long as the person is giving you what you're paying for, let them do the job. However, you know, they do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, think about it. That's what we're doing at home anyway, right? So if you're working from home, you basically have your child next to you. If you have children, you're working from home, you're dealing with online schooling and everything. So these people are capable of doing it. So those who actually work in stores and stuff like that, they should be capable of doing it also. And
I'm looking forward to the conversation tomorrow too, then, because you know, this is you know, I mean, I know places are starting to open back up and they want people to come back to work, but you know, and I saw one of these legislators talking about, oh, people not going back to work because they want these unemployment checks. People don't want unemployment checks. They want their real checks. But if schools are not open and daycares are not open, you cannot leave your children unattended. And the pandemic, now that more people getting vaccinated, then you know, extended family can step in. Grandparents can come back to caring for children.
well,
But before they couldn't do that.
as long as those grandparents go and get their vaccine.
But that's what I mean, Harry. As people get vaccinated, their first shot, second shot, you know, and all these things,
I think
you know,
they said
that would help.
yesterday. I think the Biden administration said that 50% of adults, and I think that what they're saying is the elderly population has been vaccinated.
Yeah.
That's good, but now we got to get everybody else.
Now we got to get everybody else. You know, these 16 to 40-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like, get your vaccine, right? Because that's the only way we're going to get rid of this pandemic. You know, that's the only way.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be a part of moving forward. Is, you know, then we're going to have to just build this in, right? So that we can not have this come back. But it's still with us. I mean, as long as it's somewhere in the world, Harry, it runs the risk of being here too. And it's here.
Yeah, I mean, just think about in the last 120 years where they've come up with all of these vaccines, you know, measles, chickenpox, polio, and so on. You know, all of those were new vaccines introduced to the population, right?
Yeah, because all those diseases was killing people.
Right. So we have to look back and say to ourselves, well, you know, they actually helped, you know, and our population grew, it didn't die off.
Yeah, like people not dying from polio.
Right.
Right? Or measles, or the mumps, or chickenpox.
That's
Like,
right,
people
all
are
of
not
that
dying
stuff.
from that now. Like, well, you know why we're not dying from that? Vaccines.
Yes. Yes, I actually have, you know, family members, you know, aunts, great aunts who died from measles and stuff like that. So yeah, so how did all of that get cured? With vaccines.
Yeah.
So just remember that there is a history a positive history when it comes to vaccines.
Yes. Because we don't want to go back to all those things that would kill people at the last turn of the century. Are you kidding me?
Dude, we don't want any plagues that are killing off
Right.
portions of the population. And like that, and like Babz keeps saying, that's what leads to zombies.
Yes, it does. I'm convinced, Harry. These dystopian zombie movies are telling us how this is going to go down. It is telling us. You know, that film Contagion, all these movies that you know, it starts with the virus that gets out of hand.
You know, Babz, I think the movie Songbird is available now in Amazon Prime. You remember the movie I told you about, COVID-23?
Oh no, I'm not watching that, Harry. I told you. Harry, I'm not watching any. Only way I'll watch is just to take notes on and how to get through it.
I tell you.
Yes, immune to the COVID-23 virus, a courier races against time to save the woman he loves from a quarantine camp. Harry, that would get on my nerves.
Well, you know, if people don't get vaccinated, it might
Well,
get
yeah, yeah. No, you're right, Harry. You're right. And they got some people in this movie. You know, they've got Demi Moore, Craig Robinson is in that movie, Bradley Whitfield, Paul Sloan, Sophia Carson, KJ Appa. So they've got some people in this movie, Harry. See, now you're gonna make me want to watch this. Damn it.
Well, I watched it and yeah, we don't want to get there. So get vaccinated. I don't want to be having possibilities of quarantine camps and the government monitoring your temperature because you won't and stuff like that. So yeah.
No, I'm not watching that, Harry, because that would just get on my nerves. I know it would get on my nerves. I can't watch any of them kind of movies. Although I watched all the zombie movies, right? You know, like before the series Walking Dead, there were zombie movies. And those things scared the bejesus out of me. I think it was, what is it? There was a couple of zombie movies that they were just so freaky. I was like, and you know, zombie movies, man, the populations die so quickly.
Well, you know, and then you have the crazy people who think becoming a zombie is just the next evolutionary process, Babz.
Yeah, I don't like those people either, Harry. Those people are, I just want to, you know what? I just want to push people off.
Just think
off
about
a cliff.
I do not want to evolve.
No. There's a lot of that. I think I've seen, what did I see? Because I haven't seen all of them. I've only seen like, oh gosh, I don't even know.
Day of the Dead.
Yeah, there's Day of the Dead. That's about,
and of course
it.
World War Z with Brad
Yeah,
Pitt.
I watched World War Z. I watched there's another one that was like The Day After, or what is it? Some other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did.
I love seeing all of those. I do see a lot of B zombie movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's fun to watch that stuff. It's the one that I was, you know, after we spoke about it yesterday, the day no, what is it? Being stranded in the middle of the desert. The hills have
Yeah, no, I'm not watching that. Nope.
And you know, now I gotta see it again, but it's gonna cause me not to drive anywhere.
No. Oh, and Legend, the Will Smith one, which scared me to my core, because I would not be there. I would be like, nope. I'd have to go with them. I don't care. I'm not trying to blow myself up, but somebody has to do it. So
no,
yeah.
well, you have to. I mean, if you gotta pick and choose your zombies, right? I like the Walking Dead zombies that.
Yeah, I like those because you can get away from them,
Yeah,
right?
you get away from
I
them.
don't like the World War Z ones where they're no. I don't like zombies that move like that. That doesn't make sense to me. Oh yeah, 28 weeks. Remember that one? 28 weeks? That was in 2007. I remember 28 weeks. That scared me to death. I was like, oh, I don't like this at all.
Yeah, the first one I saw was Dawn of the Dead.
Oh yes, that's the classic.
Yeah, but they go back, right? I think the first real major one was Night of the Living Dead from the 1960s.
Yeah, that's a cheesy one. That's pretty cheesy.
You know, well, it's a black and white, I think.
Yeah, that's fine.
Zombies don't look as dangerous in black and white.
Yeah, but you know what? No. Like, no, I'm not here for that.
Have you seen Shaun of the Dead?
No, but on one of these there's a zombie TV show, Harry, that my kids like to watch, where the zombies like exist in the town, and they play on the team, and they're not really welcome, but they're accepted, kinda.
Yeah, I mean, Shaun of the Dead is a guy and his friends trying to survive the zombie apocalypse, and it's a comedy / scary movie, and it was pretty funny.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that one. I might be able to watch a funny one, although don't count on it. So
no, that one you could watch. It's funny.
No.
Anyway, so we went from Black
real
Fathers
talk to zombie stuff. Listen, we cover it all on this show.
That's right.
All right, it's time for us to go. I gotta go. I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a guest. I'll send you her name again from the Workforce Alliance, and it'll be good. Friday. So we're on our way out. So thank you all for tuning in today. I love you.
Yeah, I was gonna play I'm Slipping, I'm Falling, and I Can't Get Up from DMX, but
it's not clean.
I'm not sure. My music isn't labeled right now.
Okay, never mind. Listen, just play us out.
All right. See you tomorrow.
See, to live is to suffer. To survive, well, that's to find meaning in the suffering.
Hey yo, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I can't get up. Hey yo, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I can't get up. Hey yo, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I got to get up. Get back on my feet so I can tear shit. Hey yo, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I can't get up. Hey yo, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I can't get up. Hey yo, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I got to get up. Get back on my feet so I can tear shit.
I've been through mad different phases, like mazes, to find my way. And now I know that happy days are not far away. If I'm strong enough, I'll live long enough to see my kids doing something more constructive with the time than biz. I know because I've been there. Now I'm in there. Sit back and look at what it took for me to get there. First came the ball. the drama with my mama. She got on some fly shit, so I split and said that I'ma be that seed that doesn't need much to succeed. Strapped with mad greed, a heart that doesn't bleed. I'm ready for the world, or at least I thought I was. Bagging when I caught a buzz, I'm thinking about how short I was. Going too fast, it wouldn't last, but yo, I couldn't tell. Group homes and institutions prepare my for jail. They put me in a situation forcing me to be a man when I was just learning to stand without a helping hand. Damn, was it my fault? Something I did to make a father leave his first kid at 7 doing my first bid. Back on the scene at 14 with a scheme to get more green than I'd ever seen in a dream. And by all means, I will be living high off the hog. And I never gave a fuck about much but my dog. That's the only I'd head off in my last. Just another little come on, headed nowhere fast.
Hey yo, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I can't get up. Hey yo, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I can't get up. Hey yo, I'm slipping, I'm falling, I got to get up. Get back on my feet so I can